So, what is this video about? So, this video is about like how when you learn when you really like get into really get used to using a specific way of solving a problem, like a specific method of solving a problem. Like you learn a specific pattern of solving a problem, which can be unsustainable or it can be the reason can become a problem in and of itself. So like some ways of problems like it's a little bit more complicated than that, but some ways of solving problem look can be helpful during the start, but if that's the only way of problem solving you have, then that can be a problem. Now, what do I mean by that? So like let's say if you're struggling with doing things on in your life, right? You're not doing things like you're struggling with solving problems in your life. So, and then you just start buying a bunch of products. Like maybe you buy a product to lock your phone for a certain amount of time. Maybe you buy a membership to a gym. Maybe you buy a membership to multiple gyms or whatnot, or maybe buying a bunch of products. Like you really get used to like buying products and testing them out and seeing if they're useful for you or not. And you can become like a YouTuber who makes videos like top 10 products which helped me be productive or whatever. Nothing's wrong with that. If you want to do that, there's really nothing wrong with that. And those stuff is needed and can be helpful. What I'm saying is that if you can really get lost in that way of doing things. Like you can really just keep on buying stuff, testing them out, and keep on looking for this perfect solution to the problem you're solving. And the fact that sometimes it works out keeps your hopes up that this that you can find the perfect thing. And you know what, you might, like, depending on the problem, money can solve your problem. But I think what I'm trying to drill down here is that if you are someone who's trying to solve a problem, and if you are smart enough to recognize that you're not always going to have the money that it requires to buy a big thing, that you buy the product which you think can solve your problem, like you will eventually eventually find a thing which seems like it can help you, but it's really expensive, and you don't have enough money for it. So what do you do in situations when you've learned this pattern of just buying a bunch of things, trying them out, and eventually you'll find something that helps you, but eventually when you come across a product which is really expensive and which you can't really afford, how do you approach that situation? Because you've never learned how to do things without money. You just like learn to buy stuff and then just solve your problem. Even like, it keeps your hopes up. Like learning to be able to solve problem even when you don't have the most money, even when you don't have the capacity or the resources or the money to buy the expensive thing, is an important and valuable skill to learn, because there are gonna be a lot of time when you're gonna face with situations when you won't have money, or like there's gonna be a solution out there, or at least there's like a bunch of solution out there which seems like they can solve your problem, but you're not gonna have enough money on you to try them out. And it's not like the thing that you see in front of you which seems like a solution is the solution. Like you have to buy it and you should try it out, and and usually most things don't work out, right? So then you just realize that this isn't really the right fit for you, so you just keep it in your somewhere in case hoping that some other problem, this product will solve some other problem for you. Anyways, what I was saying is, so yeah, there's gonna be a time when and of course you can, if you're buying something expensive, you can just ask the, and if it allows, you can just ask the person that, hey, can I try this for a while, and then I'll decide if I want to buy it or not. That can work out, but I don't know if that's like can always work out. And then you can also like have friends and network to try things out, try the product. Like maybe one of your friends have the thing that you're thinking about buying, so you can try that out. Like that's different. That can work out. But what I'm like really drilling down here is you have to recognize that you're not gonna have enough money to try products and things out to solve the problem. Like, so what do you do in those situations? Learning to deal with those situations, learning how you're gonna deal with those situations is important. Like money and buying things and testing things out is helpful, and arguably is required in a lot of ways. But like you have to learn, you have to also know how to like solve a problem when you don't have money, when you don't have the capacity to buy the thing. Like coming up with these smart hacks to be like, well, I can buy this thing, but I can buy this thing and this thing. Like coming up with these like hacks which can sort of like fix your problem without like within your budget and all that. And I guess that's what innovation is. I don't know. Yeah, I guess somewhat it is. So how do you handle a situation when you don't have money and resources to fix a problem? So I'm gonna take like a bit of an extreme side here. I'm gonna like assume that you have no money and you have well limited amount of resources. Like you don't have zero, but like you have limited amount of resources. So like, and of course I'm gonna like also dial that down a bit and just explore that side of things. So what do you do when you're in a situation where you're solving a problem, but the problem requires you to have money and resources, but you don't really have any money, you're limited. So what do you do in that situation? Well, firstly you should really ask yourself, is this problem even worth solving? Like, are there any other problem which you can solve with no money or limited or no resource? Are there any problem like that which will give you the same amount of return as this problem currently? And really like thinking about it and figuring it out. And of course it's not a good habit to just switch over from one problem to another. But if you can solve a problem because you are limited by resource, and then I think it's worth just switching the problem and just really focusing, applying your effort and focus on the other problem. And also the second thing to ask yourself is that I think that this problem requires money and resources, but does it really? And recognizing when you think that problem requires money but it doesn't really is a skill in and of itself, and you're gonna be bad at it when you first start. Like you're gonna think this problem requires money, but then you like look back on the situation, you realize, oh yeah, this didn't really require problem, I could have solved it without the money. But then just like hopefully you just keep on going at it, and then eventually you'll just get better better figuring out whether the problem is for word solving or not, and getting the whole equation. Like some problem can be solved without money, but is it worth to solve the problem even if it can be solved without the money? Because without the money part of the without solving the problem without the money might require a lot of effort, which might not be worth it for you. So it's just better to switch over to a different problem. Of course it's not a good habit to switch over from one problem to another until you have solved the first problem, but like in some cases you just have to, because you're limited by resource, money, and etc, right? So you have to get better at this. And in future when you have money and you have the resource which you need to solve the problem from earlier, you can just solve it then. And of course, if you can solve the problem, even if you have to apply a little bit of effort, and if it makes sense, then you should do it. But like some problems really aren't worth solving, right? They just require too much effort and magnitude. Like they really require too much effort over a really long time, so which is not worth solving. So you can just solve that problem later when you have the money, right? So you get what I mean, like. And some problems can only be solved by money. Some problems can be solved by money, effort, money or effort. money or effort and creativity, and some problems can only be solved by creativity and effort. And of course, there are probably other fourth type that I'm missing, and so on. But I hope I got the point across that I was trying to make, right? And I said that some problem only can be solved by money, and of course, I sometimes it can mean that it is impossible to solve them without money. But I also mean, like, in a way that it doesn't make sense to solve them without money. Like, a problem might be solvable without money, but it just would require a lot of time and effort that it just doesn't make any sense to. That it just makes sense to, like, wait for the money or try to get the money and then solve the problem. So I also mean in that, like, some problems can be solved by other ways than just money, but it might not make sense for you. Like, you have to, like, figure that out. You know. There's labor and all effort, but, like, you have limited amount of resources and you have to use them carefully. And a skill of how accurately you can tell if a problem seems like it can only be solved by money, and it might seem at first that it doesn't make sense to solve it by effort and creativity, or it is impossible to solve it by effort and creativity. It also matters, like, because you can think that this problem can only be solved by money, or it doesn't make sense to solve it by effort and creativity, but in reality it can be solved by effort and creativity, and it makes a lot of sense to solve it by effort and creativity. So your skill of recognizing that is also matters. And at first you're going to be bad at it, but, like, as you keep on going, you're going to improve it. Although this is a side topic, but, like, some people, like, really don't register, like, a problem as a problem, right? Like, they would do something that's, like, really hindering them their progress, but they just won't recognize that they're doing the issue, they're doing the thing. So, like, recognize if you're constantly checking if you're doing something, if you're doing anything which is holding you back or not, is the thing. Like, it's a lot of times these things are very, like, part of us. If so, we have, like, done them so many times that they have become invisible. So, you gotta be a bit more careful for